Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So obviously we had a bunch of QOL announcements this week, and so we're just going to do like a quick recap through all of those if you haven't caught any of those, and I'll talk through some of the reasons why they're actually really good. Now the other thing was in the interview with Talkative Try and the developer of Path of Exile, Jonathan Rogers. There was a pretty clear announcement of the intentions of the game moving forwards, which is absolutely going to be fantastic. And yeah, anyway, so we'll be putting together, or this channel will be putting together a bit of a schedule, as we've always done for every Path of Exile launch in the past, and basically just getting back to basics with PoE 1 and in combination now PoE 2. But anyway, let's get into the video and talk about some of the reveals that we've had so far this week.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. This is the first of a series of videos covering quality of life improvements we're adding to Path of Exile. In the Secrets of the Atlas expansion, you can now pause the game at any time by pressing escape to open the menu or opening any full-screen interface, like the passive tree. You'll also be paused if any lag is detected, or if you disconnect. It's worth noting that you cannot do this in areas that have the cannot pause debuff, which is usually reserved for pinnacle boss content.
Okay, so with this one, basically one of the biggest issues that have always existed in Path of Exile has been, you go into your skill screen or something like that as you're leveling up, and then you randomly get clapped in the background while you're not paying any attention to the game or something like that. I think this is just like overall just a good QOL change. We'll probably see a lot more changes like this get ported over from Path of Exile 2, just on the basis of the back-end code. From what we understand about Path of Exile 2 is the same code that it's so much so that's shared with Path of Exile 1. So what we can probably expect to see is a lot of other little quality of life improvements. Like one thing that would totally break the bank would be if WASD made it into the game. I think a lot of people really want that. I could see that being really advantageous for Path of Exile 1. But as it stands, I think they said they need to complete character rigging and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of stuff that we're not going to immediately get from Path of Exile 2, but very likely other things will slowly make their way into the game over time. And the other thing is, as they tweak mechanics in Path of Exile 2, they may actually tweak that mechanic back into Path of Exile 1. I can see a lot of these changes really adding to the life of PoE 1, and if they did a graphical change in any way, shape, or form, which is very likely on the cards down the track, then that could just absolutely make Path of Exile 1 a game that would have the same lifespan of something similar to World of Warcraft, for example, which has been going strong for well over 1.5 decades plus now. But anyway, let's get on to the second reveal.
In the Secrets of the Atlas expansion, we're making some quality of life changes and improvements around the Atlas and map device. In 3.26, you will be able to use Orbs of Horizon to reroll your Elder and Conqueror Guardian maps. Doing so will reroll the base map and the Guardian of that map. We're also adding a small additional inventory to the map device. This can be particularly useful if you're rolling many maps to run in sequence, or you want to use varying amounts of scarabs or other map fragments. Keep them in here to save time going back and forth to your stash.
Okay, so the Orb of Horizon change is absolutely fantastic. One of the biggest issues with the game is around having to constantly, like in some circumstances, you got to trade for those fragments and stuff like that. But generally, you have to trade. Now that we have the in-game auction house, the real advantage here is if you're an SSF player, you can simply just get what you need to be able to farm the content that you want to farm. Because for anyone who doesn't know, for Conquerors in particular, you can get different exalted orbs, for example, Conquerors exalts, and basically you can heavily modify gear based on those exalts. So you can change an item into like a hunter base or whatever it might be, and that can roll a whole different set of modifiers. This is just one of the, I guess, more complex levels of the crafting in Path of Exile 1. For those of you who might be PoE 2 players looking to understand PoE 1 better, and if you want to see more videos on stuff like that, I'm happy to do an introduction to Path of Exile 1 for Path of Exile 2 players later down the track or as this league progresses. But yeah, outside of that, I love the Orb of Horizon change here. Like, this is a really good change. It's just surprising like it didn't happen sooner. But maybe they're really looking at the game very differently. And maybe this is actually a really good shift in the leadership going, well, we're going to keep more of an open mind to what the player base wants instead of following what we want. And maybe we're going to see a lot more stuff like this. I definitely think the inclusion of Mark as the game director now is really good because he is one of those players that plays the game into the end game and beyond. So it's a really, really good set of changes we're probably going to see coming out of this league, which have all been things that we've been, a bit annoyed about over quite a number of years. The second change with the stash tab on the Atlas is fantastic. I, for one, am a T16 Strand player. And basically, as a delver, I just like having my strand maps lined up, and then, you just chuck on a sulfite scarab and just bing, bang, boom, get through it, get back into delve right. That for me creates huge levels of efficiency. So I can see that being a huge improvement to the overall end game. So you can basically just preload your scarab runs and then just have like, what's that, like 10 or 15 maps just lined up with all the scarabs you need. And then basically just go bang, 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 and just keep hitting maps and blasting maps. I think these changes are fantastic so far. So the second one already is really good, and the third one gets even better.
In the Secrets of the Atlas expansion, we're making some long-awaited improvements to the Betrayal League. Jun has finally passed the ability to unveil items onto you. You can now just right-click a veiled item and select the modifier you want to unveil. We're also making a change to how you unlock the crafting recipes, normally discovered by unveiling items. Now, you'll discover these crafts throughout the endgame, specifically next to boss rooms and core maps on your Atlas. This will make the process of unlocking all your crafting options far less tedious.
Okay, so with this change, the most important comment is the last one, which is making the game less tedious. And this definitely does that. So basically, previously you would have to run Syndicate, and you would have to run a gamble system or an RNG system where you would have to just keep running Syndicate and harder levels of Syndicate and hopefully get the right rolls that you needed for your build. In particular, ones that were really sought after is like mana reduction rolls on rings. There were definitely focus rolls which were really good. +1 totem does exist. It's incredibly hard to get. But basically, there was another way to do this, which was having Elrion, like going after the Masters in particular, or the Syndicate members, I should say, and then basically then having to buy those items off the market and roll them until eventually you get the right roll. This is just a really good way of having native progression in the game. Okay, so another major change that we can expect is, this actually came from the Talkative Try interview with Jonathan Rogers, was around the release scheduling of Path of Exile 1 moving forwards. Now, basically how it's going to work is a new league will be released every 4 months, and they're sticking to that timeline now. They did admit that they got off track, and basically that's why we went almost a year without a full league for Path of Exile 1. But anyway, so with the assistance of Copilot, I managed to put this into a bit of a mapped out table until June 2027 as to the new leagues that we can expect. Obviously, we don't know what all the new leagues are going to be. We only know about Secrets of the Atlas at this stage, so we'll find out, every 3 to 4 months. And then in the intersecting period of 2 months in between at Half League, we'll then get a Path of Exile 2, either major patch in the early access and league. So this is what was initially promised from the very start, and then we absolutely could see GGG fell off the bandwagon with this one, and this was because of all the difficulty around the Path of Exile 2 release, as well as keeping up with PoE 1 content. It looks like they're starting to get back on track, which we knew that they would do eventually. So for those people saying that Path of Exile is dead, it is 100% absolutely not dead, and it does have a place beside PoE 2. And at the very end of the day, there's nothing wrong with being a player that plays both games, because that's exactly what I'll be doing moving forwards. But anyway, this isn't an official release image. This is something I've put together, but really cool nonetheless. Okay, so that's all the reveals that we have so far to date. There's probably going to be a ton of other reveals that come out in the coming days as well, which is going to be really good. I'm really holding out for some changes to Delve, or some updates, especially some of the glitching in Delve. There's been not a lot of love for that mechanic for some time. It'd be really cool to see some new QOL, though I'm not sure what that could take the form of. Quite frankly, it's pretty much a perfect piece of content. But that being said, there's always things that could be added to it. I really like some more interaction with the minecart and some other things like that. But anyway, we'll see what happens when we get there. Anyway, until next time, don't forget to like and sub to the channel, and follow the Twitch and the X and everything else. And I will see you guys next time.